My daughter-in-law said, "We changed the locks." The locksmith recognized my name and froze, and that's when I knew my own family had finally turned on me. That's the first sentence that still rings in my ears every night, like a door slamming shut in slow motion. I was 71 years old when it happened, standing on my own porch in Willow Creek, Georgia, the soft smell of pine drifting through the air, the porch swing creaking faintly behind me. I had my small grocery bag in one hand, milk, bread, and a jar of peach jam, and a trembling sense that something was wrong. But I didn't expect betrayal. Not that day. Not from them. When my daughter-in-law, Anna, opened the door just a crack, her voice was calm. Too calm. "We changed the locks, Margaret." I felt the world tilt beneath me. "Changed the locks? What are you talking about? This is my home." She didn't look at me. She didn't even try to pretend to be gentle. "It's not safe for you anymore. The lawyer said this is the best option. You forget things. You wander." "We can't keep doing this." "I wander?" I whispered. I walked to the mailbox. She shrugged, her eyes cold. "We can't keep having these arguments. Please leave before we have to call someone." Those words cut deeper than any knife. Leave before we have to call someone. Someone. Which meant the police. On me. A 71-year-old woman. A woman who raised their children when they needed help. A woman who let them live in her house when they were drowning in debt. A woman who spent 30 years of her life making this home warm, safe, and full of love. I stepped back, dizzy, clutching the grocery bag to my chest. I felt like a child who'd been locked out of her own life. That's when I saw the van pulling up the locksmith. A tall man with gray streaks in his beard stepped out. He took one look at me, squinted his eyes, and something in him softened. "Mrs. Sullivan?" he asked. I nodded weakly. He turned slowly toward Anna. "You told me this house belonged to you," Anna stiffened. "My husband inherited it." I swallowed hard. "My husband left it to me, not to them. I never signed anything over." The locksmith's jaw tensed. "Then I need to see documentation," Anna's voice sharpened like broken glass. "We have power of attorney." Her lie sliced through the air so sharply I felt it in my bones. "And why didn't you show that to me earlier?" the locksmith asked. "I don't have it on me," she muttered. He looked between us for a long moment, then said quietly to me, "Ma'am, step aside for a minute." I did, not because I trusted him, but because every part of me sensed something was deeply wrong enough to step back and watch the scene unfold like a nightmare I didn't remember dreaming. That was the beginning. The day I learned my own son and his wife were trying to erase me, but the truth didn't hit all at once. It came slowly, like a leak in the ceiling, one drip, then another, then the sudden collapse of everything I thought I knew. For most of my life, I believed in patience, in kindness, in second chances. I believed that if you gave your heart to your family, they'd hold it gently. I believed my son, Michael, was still that kind, curious boy who used to bring me little frog figurines from the garden, or that young man who hugged me so tightly before leaving for college, whispering, "Mom, I'll always take care of you." But people change. Or maybe they just become more of who they really are when life gets hard. I met my husband, Daniel, in 1974. He was 22, I was 20. We got married the next year, and somehow life just unfolded. Jobs came and went. Money was tight. Rent was $700 a month, and even that felt like too much sometimes. But we built a life. We raised Michael in that same old house. We ate dinner by candlelight when the electricity got shut off, and we laughed about it so our child wouldn't be scared. When Daniel died 15 years ago, the house became my sanctuary. My memories lived in the walls, Michael's first drawing taped crookedly in the hallway, the chipped doorframe where we marked his height every birthday, Daniel's coat still hanging near the back door because I could never bring myself to move it. After he passed, I lived alone. Quietly, safely, or so I thought. Michael and Anna started visiting more often. At first, I thought it was love, family bonding, but slowly, things shifted. "Mom, you shouldn't be climbing ladders anymore," Michael said one afternoon. "Mom, You shouldn't be handling sharp knives, and I warned another day, you know, maybe we should take care of the bills. Just to help, Michael suggested. Help, support, protection, words that now make me sick to my stomach. In 2021, they told me they were consolidating paperwork and I just needed to sign a few forms. I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? They were my family. I'm not signing over anything important, right? I had joked, pen hovering above the line. Of course not, and I had said, her manicure tapping impatiently on the table. Just routine stuff. I should have read it, but my eyes weren't what they used to be. And my heart trusted too easily. A year later, my mail started going missing. Bills I never received, letters I hadn't opened, subscription renewals I didn't remember signing. The electric company sent me a warning even though Michael insisted he was paying everything. Mom, you're confused, he told me. Don't stress about it, but I was stressed. I felt ashamed for forgetting things I didn't remember forgetting, ashamed for feeling lost in my own life. Then I overheard them on the porch one day, thinking I was asleep. Her memory is getting worse, Anna whispered. If we don't push this through now, we'll lose everything. We need the house, Michael muttered. That $25,000 loan is due in 3 weeks. My heart dropped. They were drowning in debt, and I was their lifeline. From that moment on, I watched them more closely. I noticed Anna taking photos of documents in my office. I noticed Michael's sudden interest in my prescriptions, especially the ones that caused dizziness if doubled. I noticed the strange phone calls they took outside, the ones they'd end abruptly when I got too close, but every time I tried to confront them, they twisted it back on me. You're imagining things. You're stressed. You're 71, Mom. It's normal for people your age to forget things, and for a moment I believed them. I started thinking maybe I was losing my mind. Maybe they were right. Maybe the world had shifted and I hadn't kept up. Then, one Tuesday morning, the locksmith recognized my name and everything snapped into place. Something in his expression told me he knew a secret I didn't, something he wasn't supposed to say, and when he whispered, "Ma'am, I think you need to talk to someone you trust," I felt a chill crawl up my spine. "I don't have anyone," I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, "Maybe you do." He gave me a card. A small, white card with a name handwritten on the back. A private investigator. That card changed my life. Her name was Grace Holloway. A quiet woman with cropped hair, silver-rimmed glasses, and a stare that saw through walls. When I told her everything, my lost mail, the signatures I didn't remember, the whispers, the debt she didn't blink, "Do you want the truth, no matter how painful?" she asked. My voice shook. "Yes." "Then we start today." And so began the darkest, most terrifying, most liberating chapter of my life. Grace dug through records. She found documents I never signed, documents granting my son power of attorney, transferring partial ownership of my home, changing the beneficiary on my life insurance. She brought me medical records showing pharmacy pickups I didn't make, double doses of pills I didn't approve. She set up a small camera in my kitchen, a camera that recorded things I would have never believed if I hadn't seen them myself, and I stood over my pill organizer, whispering, "Just a little more. The doctor will think it's natural, Michael." Pacing the living room, muttering, "If she falls again, they'll have to put her in assisted living. Then the house is ours." My own children plotting my removal, planning to drug me, preparing to take everything. Grace saved the recordings, backed them up, labeled the dates, then she said, "We have enough to confront them, but we'll do it on your terms." So I waited until Friday, until the day their $25,000 loan was due, until desperation would make them bold enough to make their final move. They came to my house. They walked right in using their new keys. They didn't expect me home. They didn't expect me awake. They didn't expect to see Grace sitting beside me. "Mom," Michael choked out, and froze, her hand still inside her purse where the small pill bottle hid. I stood slowly. I felt taller than I had in years. "We need to talk," I said. "What's this about?" Michael snapped. Why is there a stranger in our house? Our house, I repeated, my voice cold. Interesting choice of words. Grace played the first recording. I watched the blood drain from their faces, watched their panic rise, watched their eyes dart to the door as if freedom lived behind it. Then I played the second recording, and the third, and a broke first. This is taken out of context. Really? Grace said calmly. Because planning to drug your mother-in-law seems very clear. Michael lunged forward. Turn that off. Grace didn't flinch. Touch me and I'll have you arrested before you reach the driveway. Neighbors gathered outside. They heard the shouting. They heard the crying. They saw the truth unfold on my porch, the same porch where they smiled, hugged me, pretended to love me. I stood in the doorway, my hands shaking, my heart breaking. How could you do this to me? After everything? After raising you? After giving you a home when you had nothing? Michael's voice cracked. We were desperate, so you tried to poison me? And as tears streaked her makeup. We didn't mean, we just thought. You thought I was worthless, I whispered. You thought an old woman couldn't fight back. Police cars pulled up. Officers stepped out. Questions flew. Grace handed over the evidence, and just like that, with handcuffs clicking shut, my son and daughter-in-law were led down the porch steps, my porch steps, past the neighbors who had once adored them. The aftermath wasn't easy. Court hearings, statements, tears. I cried alone in the kitchen. Regret that tasted like metal. But justice came. Slowly, steadily, coldly. They were charged with fraud, attempted poisoning, elder abuse, and conspiracy. My home was returned to my name. My accounts were restored. And for the first time in years, I slept without fear. These days, my mornings are quiet. I drink tea by the window, watching the sun rise over the old oak tree. I walk to the mailbox without shaking. I breathe deeply without worrying who's watching. I am 71. I am alone, but I am free, and I have learned one truth I'll carry with me until the end. True family is not defined by blood, but by love and respect. And old age is not weakness, it is wisdom sharpened by survival. If you were watching my story, if you felt even one moment of fear or one moment of strength on my behalf, then tell me, what would you have done if your own child tried to erase you? Like the video, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe if you want more stories like this, stories of truth, survival, and the fight for dignity. But freedom, I learned, doesn't come all at once. It comes in layers, peeling back slowly, painfully, like old wallpaper revealing hidden cracks underneath. After the police cars pulled away with Michael and Anna inside, the silence in my house felt thick, almost unnatural. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed that night, my hands clasped so tightly together that my fingers ached. I stared at the doorway, half expecting them to walk back in and shout that it was all a joke, a misunderstanding, a terrible mistake. But they didn't, and the house stayed still. The next morning, Grace came by at 9 sharp. I was still in my robe, staring at the kitchen table where my old pill organizer set proof of just how close they had come to succeeding. You didn't sleep, she observed gently. I shook my head. How could I? I keep remembering. Every word, every lie, every moment I doubted myself. Grace sat across from me. You were manipulated. That's not weakness. That's abuse, abuse. Such a simple word, such a crushing one. I raised him better, I whispered. Grace didn't soften. She was not the type to offer empty comfort. People make choices, and he made his. I took a shaky breath. What happens now? She leaned back. The DA's office will review everything. With the recordings, the pharmacy records, and the forged documents, the case is strong. But you'll need to make a statement. You'll need to be ready to testify. My stomach churned. Testify against my own son? Grace didn't answer. She didn't need to. That night, the past played like a movie reel in my mind. Michael as a newborn, tiny and squirmy. Michael at 5, shouting, "Look, Mama," when he caught his first fish. Michael at 17, furious because I wouldn't co-sign a loan for a used car. Michael at 23, storming out after an argument about Anna moving into quickly. There were cracks even then. Cracks I ignored because love has a way of covering the truth like fresh paint, but fresh paint peels. The next 2 weeks crawled by. Neighbors visited, some out of kindness, others out of morbid curiosity. One woman, Linda from next door, hugged me tightly on the porch. I always knew something was strange about them, she whispered. The way she snapped at you. The way he talked to you like you were. In the way, I swallowed hard. Did you ever hear anything? Anything that might help? She bit her lip. Once, last year, they were arguing outside late at night. Anna said something like, if she signs it, we're fine. If she doesn't, we'll make her. I didn't know what she meant. I should have asked. I should have told you. You didn't know, I said softly, but inside I wondered. How many signs had I ignored because it was easier to believe in love than in betrayal? 3 weeks after the arrest, I received a call from the district attorney's office asking me to come in for an interview. Grace drove me. I stared out the window during the ride, watching familiar streets blur by streets I had walked with my husband. Streets where my son once rode his bike. Streets where I had built a life I believed was safe. The DA was a calm, stern woman named Elaine Porter. She spoke gently to me, but her questions were sharp. Mrs. Sullivan, when did you first notice changes in your son's behavior? What documents did they ask you to sign? Do you remember feeling dizzy or ill after taking your medication? Did you ever fear for your life? My throat tightened. Yes, I whispered. Saying it aloud felt like admitting something shameful, that I had been afraid of my own child, that I had felt trapped in my own home, that I had questioned my memory, my sanity, my worth. When the interview ended, I felt hollow, exhausted, but also lighter, as if speaking the truth peeled away a layer of guilt I didn't know I was carrying. A court date was set for 6 weeks later, 6 weeks of waiting, of wondering, of reliving every moment, of fighting the ache in my chest that whispered, you failed as a mother. Grace visited often. She brought files, updates, even groceries. You don't have to take care of me. I told her once, I'm not taking care of you, she replied. I'm helping you take your life back. One evening, she showed me a document that froze my breath, a guardianship petition filed by Michael, signed supposedly by me. If it had gone through, they could have placed me anywhere, taken everything, controlled every aspect of my life. They were close, Grace said. If the poisoning didn't work, they'd use this. For a moment, I felt faint. My body wasn't betraying me, my son was. My memory wasn't failing, my trust was. The day of the hearing arrived gray and cold. I wore my husband's old navy blue coat because it made me feel braver. Grace stood beside me as we entered the courthouse, her presence steady, strong. Inside, Michael sat with his attorney. He looked thinner than usual, his hair unkempt, his eyes hollow. Anna wasn't there. She had already accepted a plea deal in exchange for testimony. He didn't look at me. When the judge entered, everyone stood. My knees trembled. The room felt like it was shrinking around me. Case number 43821. The State of Georgia vs. Michael Sullivan, the clerk announced. The DA laid out the evidence. Forged documents, pharmacy withdrawals, audio recordings. One by one, she presented facts that felt like daggers in my heart. Then they played the recording of Anna in my kitchen, just a little more. The doctor will think it's natural. I closed my eyes. Even now, the words made my stomach twist. Michael's attorney tried to argue that the recordings were taken out of context, that my age made me confused, that I was misinterpreting events. But when I was called to the stand, everything inside me shifted. I walked slowly, deliberately, refusing help as I climbed the steps. I sat down, looked at my son, and saw not the child I raised but the man he chose to become. The judge asked, Mrs. Sullivan, do you feel safe around your son? My voice cracked. No. The courtroom went silent. For months, I continued. I questioned myself. I questioned my memory, my sanity, my worth. I thought I was failing, but I wasn't. I was being deceived. Michael finally looked at me. Tears glistened in his eyes, but I felt nothing. No pull of sympathy. No ache of maternal instinct, only loss. I loved you, I whispered to him, my voice shaking. I loved you more than anyone. But love doesn't excuse cruelty. Love doesn't justify betrayal. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His shoulders collapsed inward, as if the truth itself crushed him. When my testimony ended, the judge ordered Michael into custody without bail. I walked out of the courtroom lighter than I had walked in, but healing is not a single moment. It is a long, uneven road. In the months that followed, I learned to live alone, not out of fear, but out of choice. I planted roses in the garden. I donated Michael's old clothes. I took long walks at sunrise and sat on the porch at dusk, watching shadows stretch across the yard. Neighbors waved. Children rode their bikes past my house again. Life moved. One afternoon, a young couple knocked on my door, nervous and hopeful. We heard you live alone, they said. If you ever need help with groceries or mowing the lawn, we're just next door. A chosen family. A gentle reminder that kindness still existed. Grace visited every few weeks. She never stayed long. She wasn't the sentimental type, but she always asked, "How are you holding up?" And slowly, I learned to say, "I'm okay." The trial concluded with Michael sentenced to 8 years in prison. A part of me broke hearing it, but another part, an older, wiser part, knew it was justice. As for Anna, she received 3 years with probation after testifying fully against Michael. I never saw her again. I didn't want to. The house with my husband's coat still hanging by the back door. The house where I raised a son who lost his way. The house nearly stolen from under my feet is mine again, and some nights, when the wind rustles through the pines and the porch swing creaks softly, I sit with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders and whisper to myself, "You survived. I survived betrayal. I survived manipulation. I survived the people who were supposed to love me most, and now, I choose peace." If you listened to my story, if you found strength in my voice, I want to ask you, what would you have done if the people you loved turned your home into a battleground? Tell me in the comments. Share your heart. And if you believe that no one, not age, not fear, not betrayal should steal your dignity, then like this video and subscribe for more stories of courage, survival, and truth. I may be old, I may be alone, but I am no longer afraid, because I finally learned this. True family is not defined by blood, but by love. And old age is not weakness, it is armor crafted from every battle we've survived. The strange thing about surviving betrayal is that the world doesn't pause to honor your pain. The sun still rises, bills still arrive, the kettle still whistles. But inside, you feel as if time has cracked open and spilled something heavy into your bones. I spent those first weeks after the trial drifting between rooms of my house as if relearning their shape. The living room felt too large, the kitchen too quiet, the hallway too familiar with memories I suddenly wasn't sure I wanted anymore. I found myself talking to Daniel, sometimes my husband, gone 15 years now. I would stand in front of his coat by the back door, brushing my fingers over the worn fabric. "You wouldn't believe what happened," I murmured once. "Our boy, our only boy," but the house stayed silent, offering no comfort. One morning, a letter arrived from the bank, thick, official looking. I braced myself. For years, Michael had begged me to let him handle the paperwork, claiming it confused me. Now I was untangling everything he'd twisted. Grace sat with me as I opened it. My hands trembled less when she was beside me. Inside, I found statements of withdrawals I never made, loans I never approved, a credit card in my name with thousands of dollars charged to it. My mouth tightened. "He used me like an ATM," I whispered. Grace shook her head. "He used you like a resource he believed he owned." The word "owned" made my stomach twist. We spent hours on the phone with banks, insurance companies, state offices. Each call revealed another layer of deceit. Michael had set up auto payments from my account to cover his debts. He had used my social security number to apply for a line of credit. He had even changed my mailing address on several important accounts to his home 3 towns over. I didn't know, I kept repeating. I didn't know he'd gone this far. You trusted him, Grace said simply. Trust isn't a flaw, but in those moments, trust felt like a shackle. The deeper we dug, the more violations surfaced. And yet, for each new discovery, I couldn't stop remembering the little boy who used to curl up on my lap, tracing the veins on my hands as if they were rivers. How did that child become this man? Was the seed of betrayal always there, waiting to bloom? Or had life twisted him until he justified cruelty as survival? These questions haunted me more than the crimes. A month after the trial, I received a letter from Michael's public defender. Inside was a handwritten note in my son's messy scrawl. Mom, I'm sorry. Not for what they say I did, but for how it ended. You pushed me into a corner. You don't understand the pressure I was under. I was trying to save my family. Your house could have helped all of us. You just couldn't see that. Michaeli sat there reading the words again and again, feeling no remorse from him, only blame. Blame that cut deeper than any courtroom verdict. Grace took the letter gently from my hands. He's still manipulating you. Even now, I laughed. Then a weak, cracked sound. Do you ever stop being a mother? She smiled softly. No, but you start becoming something else too. A survivor, and survivor, I realized, was not just a word. It was a new identity, one earned with pain and clarity. As winter crept in, I began repairing the physical pieces of my life. I had new locks installed, ones only I had the keys for. I bought a new phone, a new computer. I changed every password. Grace helped me freeze my credit and restore my accounts. Every step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, but emotional repair was slower. The hardest part wasn't fear, it was loneliness. Not the loneliness of living alone, but the loneliness of realizing the people you loved most never really loved you back. At least not in the way you believed. One night, unable to sleep, I sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket. The moonlight shimmered across the yard. I thought about calling the prison. I didn't want to speak to Michael, but I wanted to hear something. Some acknowledgement. Some shred of the son I once knew, but I didn't call. Instead, I sat in the quiet, letting the pain settle instead of fighting it. The next day, unexpectedly, Anna showed up. I saw her through the screen door, thin, pale, her eyes sunken with stress. She clutched a folder in one hand. I hesitated before opening the door, but curiosity outweighed caution. What do you want? I asked. She swallowed hard. I need to apologize, do you? My voice was not cruel, but it wasn't warm either. She took a shaky breath. I was wrong. I was desperate. And I was afraid of losing Michael. He kept saying if we didn't get the house, we'd lose everything. That your savings were just sitting there. That you didn't need so much space. That justifies poisoning me. I asked quietly. Her chin quivered. No, nothing does. I'm so sorry. I didn't say anything. She extended the folder. These are all the documents we took from your office. Originals. I thought you'd want them back. I glanced at them. Insurance statements, house deeds, bank letters. Things she had no right to touch. I took the folder slowly. You should go, she nodded. I'm going to try to rebuild my life. Without him. I hope, someday, you find peace. When she left, I sat with the folder on my lap for a long time. Her apology didn't erase the betrayal, but it cracked something open inside me, something like closure. Still, I wasn't ready to forgive. And forgiveness, I learned, was not a requirement for healing. Another month passed, and then came a letter I never expected. This one was from a woman named Elizabeth Parker, who lived in Atlanta. Mrs. Sullivan, I don't know how to say this, but I believe I'm your husband's daughter. The letter went on to explain that in 1985, years before I ever met Daniel, he had a brief relationship with a woman he never spoke of. A woman who became pregnant. A woman he left. I stared at the letter, stunned. My husband? The man I thought I knew inside and out. The man who swore he had never loved anyone before me. I felt the floor shift. Grace came over as soon as I called her. You believe her? She asked gently. I don't know, I whispered. But Daniel always went quiet when I asked about his 20s. And there was that photo I found once, a baby picture I didn't recognize. He said it belonged to a coworker. Maybe this is why Michael felt entitled, Grace murmured. He always feared losing what he believed should be his. The idea sliced through me like cold water. Elizabeth wasn't after money. She simply wanted to meet me. She wrote that she had found Daniel's obituary years ago but never found the courage to reach out. Seeing the news of the trial online had made her finally do it. I agreed to meet her. She arrived on a Sunday afternoon, a woman in her 40s with Daniel's eyes. When she smiled, I felt a strange ache of recognition. I'm not here to hurt you, she said softly. I just wanted to know the woman he married, the woman who loved him. We talked for hours. She told me about her childhood, her life, her mother's silence, and in the quiet intervals between our words, I felt my heart unfold in unexpected ways. I hope you don't hate him, she whispered once. I shook my head. No, I don't hate him, but I wish he had trusted me with the truth. She nodded. Me too. When she left that evening, I stood on the porch long after her car disappeared. I thought about secrets. The ones we choose, the ones we inherit, the ones we survive, and suddenly, it all made sense. My husband kept secrets. My son learned to keep darker ones. And I had been left to pick up the pieces, but discovering Elizabeth didn't break me. It freed me. For years, I carried the belief that I had failed as a mother, that if I had been better, softer, stricter, warmer something, Michael wouldn't have turned cruel. But life is not a perfectly measured recipe. People are unpredictable. Pain travels through generations like a hidden current. Some drown in it, some escape, and some like me learn to swim. Spring arrived slowly. Warmth seeped back into the days. Flowers bloomed along the fence line. My house felt less like a battleground and more like a sanctuary again. One morning, I found myself baking muffins, blueberry, with a crumble top. The house smelled sweet and warm. I felt calm. My doorbell rang. It was the young couple from down the street. They brought their toddler, who clutched a stuffed rabbit. We made you something, the woman said shyly, handing me a small clay pot painted with bright colors. Inside it was a tiny plant, barely sprouting. For new beginnings, she said. I held it carefully. Thank you, the toddler giggled. Flower for Maggie. No one had called me Maggie in years. I felt something loosen inside me, something tender, something hopeful. After they left, I set the little plant on the windowsill above the kitchen sink. Sunlight touched its leaves. I realized in that moment that healing wasn't a single event, but a collection of small mercies. A neighbor checking in, a stranger sharing the truth, a letter that answered questions I didn't know I had. A pot of flowering soil reminding me that life grows again, even in places scorched by betrayal. Some nights, I still dream of the courtroom, of Michael's eyes staring at me with a mix of fear and resentment. Some afternoons, I still feel the echo of his small hand in mine from decades ago. But these memories no longer crush me. They sit beside me like shadows, present, but powerless. I have chosen peace. I have chosen dignity. I have chosen a future that belongs to me alone, and if there is anything I want the world to learn from my story, it is this: even the deepest betrayal cannot steal the strength of a woman who refuses to break. If you felt my story in your bones, if it touched your heart, reminded you of your own strength, or opened your eyes to the pain so many elders silently endure, then speak to me in the comments. Tell me what parts struck you. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me if you've survived something similar, and if you believe in justice, survival, and the unstoppable resilience of the human spirit. Then like this video, share it, and subscribe for more stories told in my trembling but unbroken voice, because I am not just a mother, not just a widow, Not just a victim, I am a survivor, and this is my truth. The last piece of my healing arrived on a quiet Sunday months after the courtroom. Months after the letters, months after I had already pieced myself back together. I was sweeping the porch when I saw an older man walking toward my house. He looked familiar somehow, though I couldn't place him. He stopped at the bottom of my steps and removed his hat politely. "Mrs. Sullivan, yes?" I asked carefully. "My name is Gerald," he said softly. "I work at the prison. Your son wanted me to tell you something." He thought a letter might be too painful. The world tilted just slightly, not with fear, but with a strange, steadying anticipation. What did he want to say? I asked. Gerald took a folded paper from his pocket. He said he couldn't write it himself. He said he didn't deserve that closeness. But he asked me to deliver this message. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. Inside were only 6 simple words. "I'm sorry. Please live your life." Not an excuse. Not a manipulation. Just truth. Finally, painfully, quietly, I stood still for a long moment, feeling the weight of those words settle inside me. They didn't fix anything. They didn't erase anything. They didn't change the past. But they loosened something, a knot I didn't realize was still tied around my heart. "Thank you," I whispered to Gerald. He nodded gently and walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I simply breathed deeply, fully, like a woman stepping out of a storm she thought would never end. That evening, I sat on my porch swing. The air was warm, cicadas humming softly in the distance. The little plant the young couple gave me had begun to bloom, tiny white flowers opening themselves to the fading light. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something rise in me that I had forgotten existed. Peace. Not the peace that comes from forgetting, but the peace that comes from surviving. I thought about everything, the locks, the lies, the recordings, the courtroom, the apology, and I realized something important. My life didn't end when Michael betrayed me. It didn't end when Anna tried to break me. It didn't end when I doubted myself. It began again it as a mother defined by a broken child, not as a widow defined by an old secret. Not as a victim defined by her suffering, but as a woman who faced the truth and still chose to stand. I closed my eyes and let the breeze brush my face. Somewhere inside, Daniel's memory settled beside me, not as a mystery, not as a wound, but as a chapter. Michael, too, became a chapter, not erased, but completed. And me, I was the one holding the pen now. Sometimes, to survive, you must let go of the people you thought would never hurt you. Sometimes, to heal, you must accept the truth you never wanted to know. And sometimes, to live, you must begin again at 71. With trembling hands, a quiet porch, and a heart that refuses to die. If my story has reached you, if it opened your eyes, touched your heart, or reminded you of your own strength, then I want to ask you something from the deepest part of my soul. What would you have done if your own child tried to erase you? Tell me in the comments. Share your thoughts. Your voice matters more than you know, and if you believe in truth, justice, and the resilience of people like me, people who have been bruised but not broken, then please like this video, subscribe, and share my story with someone who needs to hear it, because no matter your age, no matter your wounds, no matter who has betrayed you, you deserve safety, you deserve dignity, you deserve to survive, and you deserve to begin again.